Behind the Mirror of Music with Dannii Cohen.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Behind the Mirror of Music. My name is Dannii Cohen. This week's guest will be Heather Jackson. It's part 3 of the Phantom of the Opera specials to celebrate 115 years since the original novel by Gaston Leroux was released. Heather Jackson performed the role of Madame Giry on West End for 9 years. In this interview, we talk about how she created her interpretation of Madame Giry, how the book influenced her, and ask her some questions by fans. Next to her years as Madame Giry, Heather enjoyed a varied career with roles in My Fair Lady, Fiddler on the Roof, Oklahoma, The Boyfriend, Stepping Out, and much more. I hope you will enjoy the show.
So nice to meet you finally.
Nice to meet you. Hope you're well.
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you.
What are you doing right now?
Right now, well, apart from chatting to you today, I teach singing. So that's what I do when I'm not on stage. So I had a student in at 9 o'clock this morning and we were recording a singing exam to be submitted for her grade 5. So yeah, that's what I do when I'm not on stage.
How did you fall in love with music and theater?
Um, well, my mum was she started off in opera, and my mum was my singing teacher. So from a very early age, it was normal to go and see theatre productions. And because she had worked with so many people, if we went to see a show, we would usually go backstage and meet them, and I would see the costumes and see the sets up close. So yeah, that's where it all started. But when my mum had my brother, who's 6 years older than me, she gave up professional theatre and she went back and did some amateur musical shows. She also MD'd a lot of shows and directed a lot of shows. So yeah, we were encouraged we weren't forced to sing. We always asked to learn songs and she would teach us when we were little. And then when I got to about 14, that was when I started singing seriously, having proper lessons with her. But I originally wanted to be a dancer. So from the age of 4, I was at ballet class and that was what my passion was up until I was 18, 19 really. So yeah, that's where it all started. It was a normal thing to want a career in theatre because my uncle had been a professional actor as well. So yeah, it was just normal life for us.
It's lovely when it can be a family thing, so everybody understands your passion.
Mm, yes, and it was always something that was encouraged if we wanted to do it, but we knew what a difficult career it could be as well. So my brother is an actor, musical theatre actor as well. So yeah, we both ended up going into the same profession as my mother.
And what was your first professional role?
My first professional role, let's see. I sang when I was 18. I was at ballet school at the time, but I sang in a Scottish show in Edinburgh, and a lot of my friends were dancing in it. And because, let's just say, by the time I was 18, I knew I was never going to have the right physique to be a professional dancer. So I was finishing off my time at ballet school, but I happened to say to the man we were all auditioning for, that I was a singer as well. And so I sang for him and I ended up doing this Scottish show in Edinburgh for a lot of American tourists. And it was only a few weeks over the summer. It wasn't a great show, but it was certainly a good experience and it toughened me up a little bit because, you know, Nothing was done for you. You had to do everything yourself. My mum made my costume for it. And that was the first professional thing I was paid for. Then I went to drama school because I knew I was never going to be a dancer. I was thinking about music college, but then I thought I can sing with mum, free singing lessons at home. So I went to drama school in Edinburgh and thought I was going to be doing Chekhov and Ibsen. And I loved doing that. I loved doing the straight drama side of things. But when I left drama school, my first show after that was actually a play called The Douglas, which was on in the Edinburgh International Festival. And I was an acting ASM on the show. I sang a song unaccompanied, which was very scary, to start the show, but it was a drama piece. And then I said one line and I moved a chair, and that was all I did in the show. So that was my proper start in professional theatre.
You were Madame Giry in Phantom of the Opera for 9 years, Sarah?
That's right, yeah.
So, but as I said, there have been a lot of questions from Phantom fans about this.
Yeah, so what do they want to know?
Well, I have to write them down because to remember them. Did you audition for Madame Giry specifically?
I auditioned for the show not knowing what they would see me as. I had auditioned a few years earlier, had a disastrous audition where I couldn't hear the piano and the accompanist couldn't hear me, and it was awful. And I didn't get the job then, and I thought, oh, I didn't want the job anyway. A few years later, my brother had been in the show as cover Monsieur Andre and cover Rao. And a few years after he left the show, an audition came up again. And I thought, well, I don't think I'm right for anything, but I'll go and see what happens. And at that audition, they gave me the music for Madame Giry and said, we're looking for a Giry cover. So would you listen to the music and learn the music and come back next week and sing, I think it was the first manager's scene. So I had to go away and learn it and came back the next week and they said, yeah, we'd like you to cover Giry. So my first year was covering. And I was lucky because I was on a lot. It just happened that I had a few good runs in the year. And I knew before the end of that year that I was going to be taking over. I actually auditioned for Beauty and the Beast when it opened in London. And I was offered swing on that. And swings in the UK are, I think they're valued more now, but at that point in the 90s, swings in America were seen in a different way and they were paid a lot better than they were paid here. So I turned swing down on Beauty and the Beast. And at that point, the resident director on Phantom said, I'm glad you've turned it down because we may have some very good news for you. And within a few weeks, I knew that I would be taking over at the next cast change. So yeah, so that was the start of it. And I loved my time in Phantom, loved it.
Did you have a specific backstory in mind when you played the show as to Madame Giry's relationship to Phantom or anything else?
Well, my ballet teachers at ballet school in Edinburgh, they were called Joan Tucker and Jack Spurgeon. They had been principal dancers in the Ballet Russe to Monte Carlo in the 1940s and 50s. And Jack Spurgeon himself had been taught by Russians. And the way he taught was, he was very strict. I mean, he was a scary man. And if he said one nice thing to you, your heart would explode with joy because he'd noticed something good that you'd done. So I actually based my character on Jack Spurgeon because he had that kind of Russian way of teaching. And I always thought of Madame Giry as maybe having come from a Russian background and married a French dancer. That's what I thought she had done. So that's what I used, that very stern upright. He had just had a hip replacement when I started dancing at this particular ballet school, and he used to beat time with his stick. So that's a very Russian thing to do as well. So yeah, I felt very at home having the Giry stick in my hand and using that as part of the character. So yeah, and it was that thing of the dancers being, I felt they should be a little scared of Madame Giry, especially at that time. You know, the person, the choreographer, the teacher was feared and admired, and I felt that was what I'd gained from being at ballet school in the 70s and 80s when I was there.
How do you see Madame Giry's relationship to the Phantom?
I think she had, because the tiny little bit of backstory she tells you in the corridor scene about the Phantom is, I think that gave a clue. And I think she had known him for a long time and had rescued him or helped rescue him from the awful kind of freak show that he was part of. Because she talks about seeing a man in a cage, and I think she rescued him and helped in some ways set him up in the labyrinth underneath the Paris Opera House. So I think she had maybe heard about him when she was younger, and then she saw him in this horrible freak show, and she helped him, and so I think they had quite a close relationship, because she is the one who got Christine involved with the Phantom. She was the one who always carried the notes, so she knew the Phantom, you know, quite intimately, I think.
Did you see the movie later on, and did it change how you played, or did you stay close to what you created in your mind?
No, I stayed close to what I created. I mean, we had the luxury when I came into the show. I joined the show at the 10th anniversary in London, and we had Hal Prince and Jillian Lynn who would come and see us at least once a year each, sometimes twice a year if they could manage it. And they always brought us back to the essence of the way it had originally been staged and directed, which was wonderful, because over time things do get diluted. Relationships would change, and they were very specific about what they felt about different scenes and how you would react, and how with Madame Giry, Christine would go to Madame Giry. There might be no dialogue between Giry and Christine, but she would just go to her, and you could see the way I was directed in it, that Giry would pacify her, would tell her, it's okay, I'll sort this out, don't worry. So yeah, I think I was so lucky to have had the guidance of Hal Prince and Jillian Lynn, and over such a long time as well, because they were still involved in the show when I left. So that was a special time to be involved in it.
Did Hal and Julian teach you something that you will always remember in your career further on?
She had a wonderful way of, what you mean, Jillian Lynn, what she
Yes.
taught me, yeah. She had a wonderful way of making you feel when she talked to you, you felt special. Again, she's a dancer from that era. You know, she when she trained at Sadler's Wells, she was taught by the people who had come up with. I think she was at Sadler's Wells with Margot Fontaine. I think they trained together at the same time. So she had a wealth of experience. So I think she really understood Giry. So when she would talk to me, the nice thing was she never said, no, that's not what Giry should be. She would compliment me or say, or tell me to do a little bit more of what I was doing. So I always felt that she was very happy. Same with Hal Prince. I always felt they were both very happy with what I was doing. And one thing Jillian Lynn said to me was, we were in rehearsal, and so I had rehearsal clothes on, and I happened to have a red top on. And she came up to me, and I thought she was going to tell me something specific about Giry in the first manager's scene. And she just came up to me and she went, "You suit red. You must always wear red." And I went, "Oh, thank you." So I thought I was going to get a big note on something, and instead she was telling me that she thought I suited what I was wearing, which was lovely. But yeah, she was always so supportive, and yeah, I thought the world of her. I really did.
Did you read the original novel from Phantom?
Oh gosh, yes, but years and years and years ago. Yeah, I think I read it when I first joined the show, um, and I had seen not all of the original film of Phantom of the Opera, the kind of gothic black and white film. I'd seen bits of that as well. So yes, I to get that feel of the the gothic nature of the piece and the mystery of it all. Yes, I did. I read that. I also read the novel that was written as the sequel to it, which was interesting. But yeah, the original one I thought was fantastic, and I thought the adaptation that Lloyd Webber and Richard Stilgoe and all the other lyricists did, I thought that was fantastic. I thought it was very true to the original book.
What did you think of the changes to Madame Giry in Love Never Dies? And did you ever consider auditioning for that role?
I did audition for that role and didn't get it, which I was really upset about at the time. But you know that these things happen, and we get used to that as theatre professionals. So yeah, I went to see the show, and for me personally, the London show, I think if Hal Prince and Gillian Lynn had been involved, I think it would have helped it. I mean, it was an interesting production, but I don't think it had the impact. And especially with Maria Bjornsson's original designs, I know it was set in America, but I think with a Maria Bjornsson's wonderful plush designs, I think if she had been involved, of course she'd passed away by that point, but if she had been involved, if they'd had someone of the same type creating the production in London, I think it would have given more of a feel. I felt the set was quite bare, and yeah, I didn't fall in love with Love Never Dies. I'd be interested to see the Australian production, because a lot of friends that I know that have seen that have said that they felt that was a better, more rounded production. So I'd be interested to see that. But Ramin Karimloo, who played the Phantom, I was working with him at the time when Love Never Dies was being developed, and Ramin knew he was going to be doing it. I love Ramin. I absolutely adore his voice. And it was wonderful to be involved in the 25th anniversary with at the Royal Albert Hall with him playing the Phantom again. So yes, it was lovely to see him doing it, and that was the nice bit of consistency I felt, having him play the Phantom in Love Never Dies.
True, I've heard, Andrew Lloyd Webber said it himself in an interview, I think, that when Sarah Brightman came to visit, she sent a 10-page selection of notes for Cecil of the play and all the changes he should make.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
I think a lot of them were implemented in the Australian production later on.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, they were supposed to do the first plans for Love Never Dies were that it was going to open simultaneously in London and in New York, and possibly in Australia. They were going to try and open it in 3 places at once. And then as time went on, we heard that, oh no, it's going to be London first. Because obviously it's much better to try something out and see what works and see what doesn't work. So it would have been a huge feat. It would have been a wonderful thing if they'd managed to do it in all 3 cities. But yeah, I remember at the time thinking that's a big thing to try and pull off. So obviously that was dropped quite early on in the plans.
She could never oversee everything at once, I think. That would be so
No,
difficult.
that's it. Yeah, it'd be an impossible task.
A completely different role for you was Ado Annie in Oklahoma.
Oh, yes.
What was that like?
It was great fun. That's when I worked on the cruise ships. I worked for P&O on the British side of their operation, and the Stadium Theatre Company. We would go on and we would do over a 14-night cruise. We would do 12 different shows. It was really hard work. The musicals we did were abridged because we would do 2 shows a night, so that everyone who wanted to come and see the show could. Um, and I loved doing Oklahoma. I worked with one of my best friends. He became my best friend when we were working together, Christopher Marlowe, who's a wonderful musical theatre actor. And we always ended up playing opposite each other in all the shows we did for the Stadium Theatre Company. So he was my Will Parker, and we had such fun doing that. So it's a role that I don't think, if I'd auditioned for it in the West End, I don't think I would have been seen as that role, because I was seen as more a Madame Giry type. But that was the lovely thing about the cruise ships, was you got to do things that you wouldn't normally do. And I just adored it. It was just such great fun.
A recent role was Mrs. Higgins in My Fair Lady, directed by Simon Callow. That was a really special tour, I believe.
Um, that was in 1992, the Simon Callow My Fair Lady.
And the other one was a recent tour.
So I was, yeah, it wasn't the most recent one. I've done the show 4 times. So I was in, because I was a youngster in 1992. That was I was in the chorus and playing maids and things like that. The most recent one was the production that was directed by Bartlett Sher. And we were at the London Coliseum, and then we did a UK tour. And I was actually hired to be in the chorus and to understudy Vanessa Redgrave, Dame Vanessa Redgrave. And unfortunately for Vanessa, she took ill. I think it was only 19 shows in. And although I knew the role, we hadn't had much time to rehearse because we were just through previews and had only just done the opening night. So I went on with no rehearsal. So our wonderful associate director, who was with us during our time at the Coliseum, David Siebert, he was rehearsing the scenes with me, and then I would go on and do the scene. Then I'd come off and rehearse the next scene, and then I'd go on and do that. It was really scary, but I knew the dialogue. It was just thinking of, your position on stage, how you entered, how you exited, all those little technical things that you learn in rehearsal that we hadn't had time to do. And I was so lucky. It was a wonderful cast, and they were so generous to me, and they helped me every inch of the way. And after that first scary night, I ended up carrying on and playing the role for the rest of the London run. And then it was only, although I'd been doing it for about 3.5 months, they realised that Vanessa wouldn't be able to come back and rejoin the company. And that was when the management finally said, would you officially take over? So after playing it for a good 3.5 months. So yes, I then officially took over. But before I officially was offered the takeover in London, they'd already offered me the role on the tour. So I was really lucky. I didn't have to go through any audition process for the tour, because we knew none of the principals that were doing the show in London. We knew none of them were going on tour. So I think some of us were quite hopeful that we might be considered for the roles on tour, but we didn't know. And luckily there were a few of us who were offered the roles on tour. So it was just wonderful. I loved it. And when I was still in the London cast, because it was during COVID times, and we were lucky we never had to cancel a show. whereas a lot of other West End shows had to cancel maybe 3 or 4 performances in a row because they didn't have enough understudies to keep it going, or they would have maybe so many stage management off ill that they couldn't carry on. We never got to that point, and at one point I said to our associate director, if you need me before I have to be Mrs. Higgins, if you need me to be my servant role that I was doing, because I knew I would have time to change, I said, I can do that. If it means, if it's the difference between the show happening and not happening, I can do that. So there were a few nights where I did that as well. So I'd be a servant, and then I would change and become Mrs. Higgins, and then carry on as Mrs. Higgins. So when we did it on tour, I actually did both of those things because it was a slightly reduced cast. So I was playing my early parts, doing a servant in the Higgins household. And then from Ascot, I would become Mrs. Higgins. But I also sang off stage in the second act because I said I don't want to not sing the Ascot Gavotte. So I would sing that before I made my first appearance. And then I sang Get Me to the Church on Time. And so that's what I did on tour. And it was lovely because I still felt involved with all my lovely friends that I'd made in the ensemble. So it was the best of both worlds, really. I really enjoyed that.
Like such a wonderful, warm experience.
Yes, yeah. And the Michael Xavier, who came in to play Higgins on tour, he had played Raoul in The Phantom of the Opera, and we'd worked together about 15 years earlier in Phantom, and that was the first time that we'd worked together again. So that was quite special because we got on like a house on fire. So it was great to have him come back, you know, come into the show, and our you know, that rapport that you have with people that you've really enjoyed working with was just the same as it had been 15 years earlier. He's such a lovely man.
So wonderful when what I've always noticed in my interviews that people always keep meeting each other and get real close lifelong friendship because meeting again and again in different roles.
Yes, yes. And I actually worked with Michael again just after that. I was involved in a musical production of Roman Holiday, which was on down at Theatre Royal Bath, and Michael was playing the lead. I was in playing a tiny little part, and having to dance for the first time in goodness knows how many years, probably about 30 years since I'd had to dance properly. So that was a tiring show for me, but it was good fun working with Michael again on that. So yeah, it was funny, you know, twice within 1 year we ended up working together on 2 different shows.
What was your one of your favorite roles besides the ones we've mentioned?
Well, recently I was working at a theatre called The Mill at Sonning, and we did High Society down there, which was over late autumn and winter, so it took us over Christmas into the new year. And I played Mother Lord in that. And Mother Lord is usually a non-singing role, but I was really lucky that they did a new version of that production. So I got to sing the song Throw in a Ball Tonight. And the way they had decided to do it was kind of like Sarah Vaughan singing Fever. That's what they based it on. So it was very sultry. And so it showed Mother Lord's sort of alter ego, or the kind of give you an essence of the young woman that she had been, and why her and her husband had got together, you know, and why there was still such a connection with them, even although he had misbehaved in their marriage. And in High Society, they get back together again, and it's a happy ending for them. But yeah, I loved playing that role. And it's so nice at my age because I had 13 years where I wasn't in musical theatre. I had done a play and I'd done a few concerts and a few cabarets, but I wasn't lucky enough to get a musical theatre role an agent who didn't quite know what to do with me, or just not being lucky enough to get the auditions. So when I came back in for the role in My Fair Lady, that kind of kick-started everything again in my career. And it feels really special now at my age. When I was in Phantom, when I went back into Phantom the second time, my son was just born, and he was 4 months old when I went back into Phantom. I took him into rehearsals with me, and a friend looked after him during the day when I was rehearsing, and then I brought him home at night, and he used to come into the theatre. And so now that he's 21 and I'm back in musical theatre, and he can come to see things as an adult, because he was, I think, 5 when he saw me play Madame Giry, and then as a 21-year-old coming to see me doing other roles, that's really special. And my husband's an actor as well, so it's lovely to have the family be so supportive, for one thing, and but also enjoy coming to see me in different things. And because I was so associated with Madame Giry that at one point when I wasn't getting auditions, I thought, oh, is that the little pigeonhole that casting directors have put me into? That they only see me as this stern figure. And then, getting into other things, I've just turned 60, so it's really lovely having that thing of my career up until and just after I had my son was one phase, and now I'm in a different phase. So it's nice being seen as a different character in auditions and having new opportunities. That's been so special.
Do you still have a dream role or some character you would love to play?
Oh my goodness. One of my dream roles, which will never happen now, was to play the lead in Kiss Me Kate. And of course, Bart Sher is a production of that on in London at the moment. So I kind of missed the boat on that. But yeah, there are certain things I would have loved to have done when I was younger. But now I don't think I've got anything that I think, oh, I'm desperate to play that role. I'm really open to new things and new possibilities. And it's nice to be seen not just as a musical theatre actor. I mean, I think in the UK we do get pigeonholed. I think it's a bit different in America, but I think in the UK we get pigeonholed as musical theatre actors, and people don't see you as an actor that can do drama. Thankfully, I think that is changing. It's certainly changed because I have friends who are getting TV parts now and film parts, who have come from musical theatre. And my next project is a play. It's going to be down at the Mill at Sonning again. But it's a play, and there is a little bit of singing in it, but that's just because there's a hymn that has to be sung in one of the scenes, and there are others, a lullaby that is sung. But yeah, it's nice to be seen as an actor first and foremost, and the fact that you can do other things. And I still do dance class every week. I still sing practically every day. But it's nice to be seen as an actor who can do those other things too. So yeah, it's nice to be the next job being a dramatic role, and I've got it because I'm an actor, not because I'm a musical theatre person.
Is one of your favorite stage memories?
Oh goodness. I think my mother, because she had a career in opera, then she went into musical theatre and pantomime and variety in Scotland. I think she always wished she'd done a West End musical. But in the 1950s, when she got married, it was just not going to be plausible living in Scotland. She would have had to uproot the whole family and move to London to be able to fulfill that dream. So when I got first of all, got into Phantom of the Opera, got a West End show. It was wonderful, her coming to see me do that. And then when I got the role of Giry, I mean, she saw me when I was understudying the role, and then she came again several times when I was playing the role. And I felt so grateful, because without her training, I would never have got that role. I have quite a big operatic voice. You know, I can do that. I can do sort of jazz and poppy stuff as well, but that's not how people see me. And it was so lovely to audition for Phantom and use the voice I think that I was born with, rather than using a different version of it. And because my mum's career was primarily an opera, I felt I was fulfilling her dream as well as my dream. So that was I think that's the most special moment.
Wonderful moment. Is there anything you would wish people would know about your career, a fact you would love to share?
Oh, that's a difficult one. It's goodness, I don't know. One of the things that I think has taught me a lot about people, and has probably helped me in my career, is the fact that I'm a teacher as well. And you know, I teach one-to-one. I used to teach in a school, and I would be teaching kids from the age of 11 up to 18, one-to-one classes all through the day, and seeing the journey that they would take and seeing the joy they got out of singing, and how freeing it was for them when they would finally relax and share their voice with me, because it's a big thing to share your voice with someone. It's a very intimate thing to share. It's different if you're a musical theatre performer, it's what you do for a living. But when you are a young person and you're trying to find yourself and who you are, it's a big step to take to share your voice with someone. And to see the journey that those kids had, and how I think, not necessarily my teaching in particular, but how drama and music helped them find themselves and find an outlet for their creativity. It really showed me how special this whole business that I'm involved in is, and how it can help you, even if you don't use that, if you don't go into the business, but it helps you in your everyday life. It gives you a self-confidence that I think is very important. So learning an instrument or doing drama class and learning to perform, learning to stand up in front of people and share your talent with other people is a fantastic thing for young people to learn. So coming back into the business when I did in My Fair Lady, also after going through COVID, it was such a special thing. And I think being a teacher has taught me a lot. It's taught me to be, I suppose, kinder and gentler with people. I think I'm more accepting of people and what they're going through in life. Whereas where I was younger, I was too involved in myself. So at my age, I think that's what being a teacher and being in this business has taught me, that we all come together to create a show. We all come from different backgrounds, some privileged, some people who have really fought to pay their way through drama school or musical theatre college, some people who haven't had the luck of going through some kind of training. They've worked their way up themselves, and they've started auditioning for things. And yeah, seeing people's journeys, and the fact that we all come together and we bring our special gifts together to create the piece of art that we create, I think is a wonderful thing. And also that feeling of the way the audience reacts to it, and especially meeting some of the fans at Stage Door that have enjoyed the productions that I've been in. It's really lovely to feel that you have shared that with people and they've got something out of it. And it's transported them somewhere else for a while. I think that is the great thing about theatre, is that it can educate as well as entertain. But with all the things that are going on in the world, if we can entertain and take people out of themselves for a little while, that's a wonderful thing to do. And yeah, I think I can't remember what your question was now. But I think it's just a wonderful gift. And I love going to the theatre. I love seeing people on stage as well. So yeah, we've just booked tickets to see Hello Dolly in a couple of weeks' time, and to see A Chorus Line, which is coming to London in August as well. And I'm going up to Scotland to see a friend doing a Shakespearean play up there in Glasgow. So yeah, I love seeing my friends on stage, but I love seeing other actors do what they do, and you learn from everything you see as well.
That's a wonderful thought of you, because I do feel that theater gets and music and art just gets too little respect in that way. But people think, well, we can do without it. Why would you do it? But if you didn't have theater or acting or entertaining, there would be so little left in the world
Yes.
to take you out of the moment, to make you feel better when you were feeling down. Because when you go to depression, for example, sometimes all you have is watching series, listening to shows to keep you together in a way.
Yes, yes. And us all having come through COVID and having to stay at home, and it was such an awful time for people, and I know a lot of people felt incredibly lonely and isolated. And what is the first thing we do when we feel like that? We listen to music, we watch something on TV, we watch one of the streaming services, there are so many things, so many films that we watched during that time. We were so lucky to be together as a family. And yeah, we watched a lot of comedy because the news was so depressing day by day that we would say, right, we're going to watch a comedy film tonight, or we would watch a whole comedy series over a few nights. We would binge watch things. And it is the thing that I think is such a comfort to so many of us, and it enhances our lives. Yeah, and I think when I'm feeling low, one thing that really cheers me up is to sing. So I did a lot of learning new things, new songs during COVID, things I'd wanted to work on and never had the time to. And all those things, I think it's so important to us for our mental health and our well-being. And I think it's a very important part of life, the arts in general.
That's why it was so weird. Just when people start to realize how important it was, that politicians actually said it wasn't non-important jobs.
Yes. So it's yes, it's a very sore point, the way that the arts have been treated, and funding for the arts has been treated over the years. And I think in the UK, certainly me and the people I know are hoping that with the new government we have in the UK, that the arts will be better supported, and especially the arts in education, because funding has been cut back so drastically for that. And a lot of schools now don't have a music department, which I think is awful. So yeah, we're hoping that things will change, and music and drama in education will be better supported. Therefore, it feeds into our profession. You've got to have a school orchestra, people being involved in a school orchestra before, you have, the London Philharmonic. It all starts from people learning as kids and learning to work together. And it's the same with drama and with musical theatre. So it's such an important part of life. I hope it's better supported now. We have a change of government in the UK.
I hope so too. Because here, I'm in the Netherlands, and well, we just heard that there will be massive cuts in culture altogether. So that's going to be a future problem.
Yes, yeah. It's I think it helps so much in education when children have music and drama as part of their education at school. It feeds into everything else. It does help with language and with maths. It's that thing, it's always literacy and maths are the most important subjects, but if you have music education and drama education, it feeds into that. So I think a lot of politicians are very short-sighted in the way they look at things.
And even forget it in that acting, for example, also means people training to be future politicians because it helps them to make speeches.
Yes, and we all act in our everyday lives.
Yes.
We have our personal persona that is for our family and our close friends. But as soon as you go out into the street, as soon as you interact with anyone else, you are acting. You're if you're feeling low, you're then going out and putting on a smile for the people you have to interact with. So it's yes, it helps us as human beings.
Yeah. Because very often, sometimes you can have an argument with someone at home, and then someone at the door, you go from shouting to "Hi!"
Yes, yes, definitely. Yeah.
Do you have a message for theatre fans?
Mm-hmm. A message for theatre fans: keep going to the theatre. I know that it's I don't know what it's like in the Netherlands, but we have a lot of theatre is available on streaming services now. And although that's a really good archive to have, and we can look at productions from long ago, I really hope that people keep buying tickets and going to live theatre, because it is such a special thing to see live theatre. And that's the joy of theatre, is that the way the audience react to what you're doing on stage, they are the missing piece of the jigsaw puzzle for those of us on stage. And live theatre is such a different experience to watching a filmed version of Anything Goes or Follies or whatever else it is. And I really hope that all the theatre fans out there will carry on buying tickets and going to see live theatre. And it doesn't matter if it's professional theatre or amateur theatre or school theatre, go and see things live, because it is a different experience. And I thank all the theatre fans that get out there and do that already. So that's my message. Go and see a show or a play or a poetry reading or anything like that. Just go and see a live band, go and see live theatre and live music. And if anyone in the UK wants to come down to the Mill at Sonning and see this play called The Whistling that I'm going to be in we open at the end of September and we run through to the middle of November. It's a ghost story set on an island off the coast of Scotland in the 1860s. It's a ghost story and a whodunit as well. And it's very interesting because it's a Scottish cast, because it's set in Scotland. So we did a workshop recently of part of the first act, because the director wanted to see with the movement director how they would work certain things, because it's a very small, intimate venue down at the Mill. And it was really wonderful to be in a room with Scottish actors. I haven't worked with a whole cast of Scottish actors since I was working in Scotland in the, when would the last time be? The early 1990s. I did pantomime in Scotland. So that's the last time I worked with a whole group of Scottish actors. So that's going to be such a treat. And the Mill at Sonning is a wonderful venue. It's a dinner theatre venue. So you buy your ticket and you get a 2-course meal before you come in and see the show. And George Clooney lives next door. He wasn't in residence when I did the High Society down there, but he does live next door to the Mill. And he has, on occasion, he and his wife have come to see shows there. So so come to the Mill. You might bump into George Clooney.
Thank you so much for this wonderful interview. It's such a joy to talk to you.
It's really lovely to talk to you, Dannii, and thank you for getting in touch and asking me to do this. Yeah, it's kind of strange because I'm not a famous actor. It's lovely to be asked to do this kind of thing. You know, I know that there are a lot of Phantom fans who know who I am because I played Madame Giry for such a long time. And I still do get people, even in casts that I've been involved in the last couple of years, saying to me, "Oh, when I was 9 years old, I saw you as Madame Giry." So it makes me feel very old, but it makes me feel really, really touched that they remember that and that they want to talk about it. So yeah, it's just lovely to be asked to do something like this when you're not a household name. So thank you. It's made me feel very special today talking to you. But you've been a lovely interviewer, you know, and it's lovely that you've had questions from fans of Phantom of the Opera. That's been really lovely.
Thank you so much.
Behind the Mirror of Music with Dannii Cohen.